Clark doctor reveals shocking truth about Caitlyn Clark injury. What began as minor discomfort has unraveled into a disturbing medical saga. The situation is far more serious.
Just a moment ago, Caitlyn Clark's doctor broke the silence, and what he revealed has left fans absolutely stunned. After weeks of speculation, cryptic updates, and growing concern, the shocking truth behind Clark's injury is finally out. This isn't just a minor setback. It's something far more serious than anyone expected. Her career, her season, and even her future in the WNBA could be on the line. But what exactly did the doctor say? And how will this revelation impact one of basketball's brightest young stars moving forward? Let's dive in. What Caitlyn Clark's body has been hiding. By July 15, 2025, it was becoming impossible to ignore. Caitlyn Clark, the unstoppable rookie sensation lighting up the WNBA, was limping off the court again, this time during a punishing game against the Connecticut Sun. Fans watching from home and in the arena may have felt déjà vu, a hard screen, a sharp fall, and then that familiar limp. But what no one knew then was that this wasn't just another bump on a long season's road. It was something much deeper, much darker. A dangerous unraveling of the very body she relied on to build her legend. That Connecticut game wasn't Clark's first injury of the season. It was her fourth lower body issue in less than 8 weeks. Left quadricep, left groin, right groin, then back again. Same problems, different sides. According to several orthopedic experts who spoke off the record, what we're seeing isn't just a streak of bad luck. It's a textbook case of compensation injury syndrome. When one part of the body is hurt, the other parts often overcompensate. The pattern becomes a vicious game of whack-a-mole, except it's pain, not moles, that keeps popping up. And the more you push through it, the worse it gets. Yet publicly, the Indiana Fever stuck to the usual script. Just tightness, day-to-day, minor strain. But according to specialists, this isn't a day-to-day injury. It's week-to-week at minimum. And that's only if Clark was allowed full rest, targeted rehab, and zero court time. Instead, she's clocking over 30 minutes a game, hopping on flights across time zones, and starring in promotional events for a league that seems far more eager to market her than to protect her. What some fans once whispered is now being shouted louder. This is no longer about basketball, it's exploitation. Behind the scenes, there's another layer. Sources say Clark packed on serious muscle mass during the offseason. Understandable, given the WNBA's physical demands. But adding muscle without adapting biomechanics can be dangerous. Her shot mechanics, slightly tweaked, her movement patterns, just enough off to disturb her natural gait. Now throw in a crushing schedule, relentless defensive pressure, and zero time to recover. The result? A body pushed past the brink. One injury begets another, until the foundation begins to crumble. And during that brutal July night in Connecticut, it happened. Not just the limp, not just the grimace. Caitlyn, always calm, always composed, sat on the bench, bent forward, hands on her knees. Then came the tears, and that wasn't just pain, but what really broke Caitlyn Clark that July night in Connecticut. Stay with us as the truth unfolds. The pressure beneath the surface. By late July 2025, it was clear that Caitlyn Clark's body was under siege. But what most people missed was the silent storm raging around it. Beneath the chants, the headlines, and the sold-out arenas lies a deeper question. Who's really looking out for the athlete when the athlete becomes the product? The business machine behind professional sports doesn't slow down, not even for injury. And Clark, the WNBA's most-watched rookie in history, has found herself caught in a collision between commercial demand and medical caution. Behind closed doors, that battle is often quiet but brutal. Sources close to Clark's camp have suggested that ongoing medical evaluations began raising flags as early as late May 2025, not long after her second noticeable limp during a game against the Chicago Sky. But even as concerns grew, the public narrative didn't change. Just tightness, they said. Nothing serious. But those closest to the situation knew better. They were watching a young player grind through not only physical pain, but also a mounting expectation that didn't allow room for rest, let alone vulnerability. The WNBA schedule is relentless, more compressed than the NBA's, with fewer resources and far less time to recover. For a rookie like Clark, transitioning from Iowa's college program to a national spotlight overnight, the adjustment is staggering. And no rookie, not one, has carried this level of attention, pressure, and brand weight into their debut season. She wasn't just learning the pro game, she was becoming the face of the league in real time. Medical professionals who've worked with high-level athletes say this is where things often get blurry. There's a constant tug-of-war between injury prevention and performance, between listening to the body and chasing greatness. Athletes, especially rising stars like Caitlyn, are conditioned to push through pain, because admitting you're hurt can mean sitting out, losing momentum, or letting someone else take your place. Clark's playing style only adds to the strain. Point guards already carry more physical risk: rapid cuts, hard landings, constant pressure on knees, hips, and ankles. Add to that her signature deep shots and aggressive drives, and you're looking at a player whose joints are constantly absorbing shock. Some biomechanics analysts had flagged this during her time at Iowa, noting slight imbalances in her movement. Those same imbalances, once minor curiosities, have now become serious concerns as they collide with the brutal reality of professional play. And now, behind the curtain, something specific has changed, something her doctors saw. So, what did Caitlyn Clark's doctors quietly discover that could change everything? Stay with us, this one's different. When greatness hurts, the hidden toll of Caitlyn Clark's rise. As Caitlyn Clark continued to put up impressive numbers despite her visible struggle on the court, one thing became painfully clear: greatness doesn't always mean health. And for athletes like Clark, pushing through pain isn't a choice. It's often part of the job description. On paper, her performance still shines. The assists, the deep threes, the leadership, it's all there. But the numbers don't show the wincing between possessions, the subtle shift in how she plants her feet, or the way her minutes are starting to wear her down. That's because elite athletes, especially those wired like Clark, are masters of adaptation. They find ways to perform even when their bodies are quietly breaking down. Sports medicine specialists say this is exactly what makes managing top-tier athletes so complex. Unlike the rest of us, their bodies have been trained to operate under intense physical pressure. Injuries that would sideline most people for weeks can often be masked by muscle memory, adrenaline, and sheer mental toughness. But that's also what makes the danger harder to spot and easier to ignore. Clark's journey from Iowa to the WNBA only magnifies this problem. The gap between college basketball and the pros is enormous. Faster pace, stronger defenders, tighter schedules. For some players, that shift takes time. For Clark, the spotlight left no room for that. From the moment she was drafted first overall in April 2025, she became not just a player, but a brand. And that brand came with expectations that didn't allow her to ease into the league. At Iowa, Clark was the face of a historic program. Her college career shattered records and drew national attention, turning women's basketball into primetime television. But with that rise came an equally intense workload. She played major minutes, often carrying the offense, while also taking on leadership responsibilities. Iowa's coaching and medical staff were praised for how they supported her. But even the best systems can't fully protect a player from cumulative wear and tear. And now, months into her rookie season, the long-term effects may be catching up. Experts familiar with high-usage players point out that repetitive movements, especially when performed at high speed and high volume, can build stress in very specific ways. Over time, it's not just about the occasional sore muscle. It becomes structural. Tendons, ligaments, joints, they all start to feel the pressure. And if the transition to the pros happens too fast, without time for biomechanical adjustments or rest, small vulnerabilities can turn into chronic issues. That's what makes Caitlyn's case so concerning. The signs aren't obvious unless you know where to look, but those who do are starting to see patterns that trace back further than anyone expected. So how deep does Caitlyn Clark's battle really go? And what patterns are experts quietly warning about? Keep watching to find out. What Caitlyn Clark is really fighting. It was no longer just a story about basketball. Caitlyn Clark wasn't only battling defenders on the hardwood, she was confronting something much bigger, a professional sports system that cheered her name in public but failed her behind the scenes. The real injury here isn't just a strained groin or a bruised quad. It's the silent weight of an outdated system that still hasn't figured out how to protect its biggest stars when the spotlight turns brutal. And make no mistake, Clark is no longer just an athlete. She's a symbol, a lightning rod for everything that's broken, everything that's been ignored for far too long. Sources close to the Indiana Fever began raising concerns in mid-June when Clark started showing up to practices not as the electric playmaker fans had come to adore, but as a shell of that version. There were signs: skipping contact drills, wincing during side shuffles, opting out of post-practice scrimmages. To the casual fan, her warm-ups looked routine, but insiders knew better. She was moving just enough to pass the eye test, not enough to be ready, not enough to be safe. And yet, the team insisted she was making progress. But what did that mean? That she could jog the court without folding over in pain? That she could pose for a photo shoot without visibly limping? That's not progress. That's public relations. And for a guard whose game depends on speed, burst, and razor-sharp timing, jogging isn't a recovery plan. It's a sentence. Behind closed doors, Caitlyn began to draw a line. Quietly, she pulled back from unnecessary appearances. She started consulting with outside medical professionals, people not tied to league interests or franchise image. These weren't just second opinions, they were lifelines, and the truth they uncovered was blunt. Clark wasn't day-to-day. She was at risk of long-term damage unless something changed, and fast. For months, Clark had said yes to everything. Yes to pushing through the first flare-up. Yes to the back-to-back games with no time to recover. Yes to smiling through pain at media tours and promotional shoots. She did it all because that's what rookies do, especially rookies who are expected to carry a league. But when it came time for the system to say yes to her, to give her space, care, and a recovery plan grounded in science, not schedule, the silence was deafening. The truth is, most athletes play hurt. But the ones who survive, not just this season, but the next 5, learn when to say no. Clark waited too long, and now, the cost isn't just her physical health. It's her trust, her rhythm, and maybe even the career she's trying so desperately to protect. But what happens when saying yes too long costs more than just health? Stay tuned, this goes further than anyone guessed. Who really protects Caitlyn Clark? The question isn't just whether Caitlyn Clark is hurt. It's how many people looked the other way before it got this bad. Because when it comes to elite athletes like Clark, the path from pain to protection isn't straight. It's tangled in contracts, reputations, commercial deals, and league politics. And what's unfolding now may not just shape the rest of Clark's rookie season, but her entire career. The relationship between a team's medical staff, an athlete's personal doctor, and the league's medical policies is supposed to be collaborative. In practice, it's often a tug of war. Team doctors answer to team management. Personal physicians answer to the athlete. League protocols hover over both, aiming for consistency, but often ending in compromise. And when the stakes are high, when millions are watching, when brands are paying, when a rookie becomes a global name overnight, objectivity becomes the first casualty. Multiple sources close to the Fever's organization say there have been disagreements behind closed doors about diagnosis timelines, rehab plans, and how much should be made public. Some wanted Clark to sit weeks ago. Others pushed for re-evaluation after the second groin flare-up in late June. But instead, she stayed on the floor. Why? Because benching Caitlyn Clark doesn't just hurt the Fever's win column. It risks viewership, attendance, merchandise sales, and the momentum the WNBA has waited decades to build. And that's the dangerous part. Caitlyn's impact goes far beyond the box score. Since her debut, league attendance has skyrocketed. National TV deals are expanding. Her name trends weekly across social media. She's the spark that reignited interest in women's basketball. But all that attention creates a new kind of pressure, not just on Clark, but on the system around her. Medical decisions start sounding less like care and more like negotiation. Ethically, the medical community is clear. Athlete health must come first. But in pro sports, theory rarely survives contact with reality. Everyone involved, doctors, trainers, coaches, executives, knows the risk of resting a star. They also know the risk of not doing it. But only one of those risks makes headlines today. The other one shows up months or years later in surgeries, shortened careers, and the nagging question, what if we had protected her sooner? Experts in sports medicine stress that elite players like Clark require individualized care, not just generic treatment plans. Her role, her style, her minutes, they all create unique stress patterns on her body. What works for another guard may not work for her. And if the system can't or won't adapt to that reality, then no matter how many fans she draws or how many records she breaks, Caitlyn Clark becomes just another cautionary tale in a league that didn't listen in time. So what did the league ignore before Caitlyn Clark became a warning sign? Stay connected. This changes everything. What Caitlyn Clark's case is teaching us. As the summer of 2025 unfolds, the basketball world finds itself facing a hard truth. Caitlyn Clark's rookie season may be remembered just as much for its warnings as for its highlights. Behind the sellout crowds and soaring ratings lies a deeper story, one about how even the most advanced tools in sports medicine mean nothing if they're not used properly, or if they're buried under pressure, distraction, and profit. Modern sports medicine has come a long way. Today, athletes have access to cutting-edge technology that can detect subtle imbalances in movement, track fatigue, and even predict injury risk before symptoms begin. Tools like biomechanical assessments, load monitoring systems, and motion capture analysis offer insight that could transform how elite players are treated and trained. But these tools don't work alone. They depend on coordination between doctors, trainers, analysts, and coaching staff. And that's where things often break down. Clark's situation has exposed just how fragile that system can be, especially for someone carrying the weight of an entire league's hopes. After her initial groin issues flared in early June, sources close to her team revealed that although data showed clear signs of overuse and movement irregularities, those warnings weren't acted on with urgency. Some specialists pushed for deeper biomechanical testing. Others recommended load reduction. But no unified decision came in time to prevent her latest setback in the July 10th matchup against the Connecticut Sun. It's a story that repeats itself across sports, but it's especially dangerous in women's basketball, where the infrastructure for medical care often trails behind the male leagues. And with Clark's fame skyrocketing, the stakes became even higher. Her case has become a high-profile example of what happens when an athlete's health is pulled in multiple directions. Team success, league growth, media exposure, and personal ambition all demanding different outcomes, often at the expense of recovery. Experts in athlete development have long emphasized the need for integrated care, a system that doesn't treat injuries in isolation, but considers the athlete as a whole. For rookies especially, the jump from college to pro play comes with dramatic shifts in schedule, training volume, and physical demand. Without constant medical oversight, even small biomechanical flaws can quickly turn into chronic issues. Clark's medical journey is now becoming a touchpoint in the broader discussion around transparency in sports. Should fans have more honest updates? Should the league enforce stricter health standards across all teams? Should players be given more freedom to seek outside treatment without bureaucratic roadblocks? These aren't just medical questions, they're ethical ones. And they sit at the heart of the conversation about how to protect future stars who, like Clark, will enter the league with massive talent and massive targets on their backs. As the WNBA faces rising stars like Clark entering with sky-high expectations and pressure, how do we truly protect them? This question may decide the future of the league itself. A new standard for protecting talent. When Caitlyn Clark first strained her groin in June 2025, the blueprint was already written. One followed in every top-tier men's franchise across professional sports. At the slightest sign of injury, a generational athlete like her should have been immediately shut down. Not for a game, for 2 to 3 weeks. The elite standard? Fly in the best minds in sports medicine. Biomechanics experts, recovery specialists, and orthopedic veterans converge with one mission. Not just to heal, but to prevent re-injury. Her training is adjusted. Her minutes are managed. The press briefings become carefully worded signals of long-term vision. But that's not what happened in Indiana. Instead, Clark was thrown back on the court like nothing had happened. Her minutes yo-yoing from one game to the next. There was no rhythm to her rehab, no visible plan. The updates from the team were vague at best, non-existent at worst. Each time she winced mid-play, the cameras cut away. Each time she limped through a screen, her coaches pretended not to see it. This wasn't medical care, it was image maintenance. And behind the scenes, it lit a fire under Clark's camp. By mid-July 2025, Clark's inner circle had begun quietly mobilizing. And this time, they weren't waiting on the fever to catch up. Her longtime trainers from Iowa, her sports agents, her family, even her former college advisors, everyone was now part of a growing, off-the-books operation. A private medical team was assembled, made up of experts who usually work with NBA MVPs and Olympic medalists. Clark began undergoing biomechanical analysis normally reserved for 100-meter sprinters. Her sleep was being tracked. Her recovery was being optimized. And her body? It was now a long-term investment, managed independently from Indiana. Because here's the truth. Clark isn't just trying to finish her rookie season. She's building a fortress around her future. And that shift, away from team-first loyalty toward player-led autonomy, is what has executives whispering in private meetings and owners checking their cap sheets for 2026. That's the year everything could change. Clark's rookie contract will still be binding, but if Indiana doesn't fix what's broken, if they don't implement serious reforms in how they protect and invest in her health, she won't stay. She won't throw a tantrum. She won't spark drama. She'll simply walk into a franchise built for stars, one with performance teams, advanced analytics, and the infrastructure to protect a billion-dollar brand in sneakers and jersey sales. Cities like New York and Las Vegas are already positioning. You think Liberty executives aren't watching this unfold? You think the Aces wouldn't move mountains to open a roster spot? And Nike? They're watching too. Their endorsement pipeline for Clark isn't built for mid-tier markets. It's built for the stage, for franchises that treat athletes like crown jewels, not spare parts. That's why Clark's groin strain isn't just an injury. It's a red flag, a warning, and maybe, just maybe, a wake-up call. So, what do you think happens when a generational talent starts building walls around her own team? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to comment, like, and stay tuned.